up, I'd like to invite Oliver Steil from TeamViewer. Oliver, welcome.
Thank you for joining us. Thanks for having me. Hi, Ravi. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining us. It's a great pleasure to have you here. Join us. I just wanted to give a brief introduction, Oliver, to both your background and also to the company itself. And you're a $9 billion company today, about 10 years old. You yourself have come from both a technology and an investor background. You were with a PE firm most recently and have run both a telecom and mobile services company. Before that, you were CEOs of those. And you were at McKinsey. So you've got the right combination, I think, the right fusion of skills. So welcome, Oliver, to the NASSCOM Product Conclave. I wanted you to just give us a sense of how, obviously, TeamViewer was at the right spot in terms of the pandemic, just like Byju's, the previous company, was. I mean, you're all of those that kind of have an upswing when something like the pandemic hits. Give us a sense of what happened during the pandemic first, as an opening question, right? How TeamViewer reacted, what were the use cases you saw that really ramped up, and what new use cases you saw for the product, and also give us a sense of your product, what the range of product. It's not just Zoom, but it does a lot of other things, use cases that you'll cover, right?
Yes, so thank you for having me. Absolutely, I'm happy to give you an idea. So I think the whole pandemic situation started, as we all know, beginning last year. I think important to understand TeamViewer, we are a very global company. We have offices in all major markets. So we actually saw the pandemic starting in China with our China office. So then our China colleagues went into lockdown. Then the same moved to Japan, Southeast Asia, then it came to Europe, and then it came to North America. So in a way, we were almost within our company following the problems of the pandemic. So office by office going into lockdown. And we actually saw a surge in connectivity on our platform. So as I think you probably know, we have the paid product, but we're also offering the product for free for personal use. So many people who were in need to connect to their workplace actually did so. We opened our network for free use as long as the pandemic went on, still in some markets. So therefore, it all happened at the same time. First, we got the lockdown announcements, or the same order, lockdown announcement, surge in connectivity, people go work from home, needed access to their computers, and that was a wave that went through the world, to our offices. Problem, of course, in a situation like this, I mean, it's quote unquote a good problem to have, but of course you get the highest demand and the highest requests for service at a time when you as a company, so we as TeamViewer had to put our people to work from home as well. So all the service people, all sales people, everybody in the office had to work from home. And that created quite some stress. It also created initially quite some stress on the network because of this many more connections. We were ramping up capacity very quickly. So I think pleased to see that the connection quality was very good. But it was a very, very stressful time. I would say worked out well for us. I think we are used to work remotely, clearly, in hybrid models and purely online models. So that's what we do. So therefore, I think our workforce, our colleagues are very used to it. But still, it's a moment of stress. And we were actually very pleased how well it worked then in the end. From a use case perspective, I think what we saw is that companies were in emergency mode. And what was very new is, and you alluded to that, what was very new is this was not a video conferencing online meeting issue that we were solving, because that online meetings have been around for a while. We provide TeamViewer meeting. There's other players in the market. You mentioned one. And clearly that is more like was a known piece of this whole thing. I think what was unknown is that suddenly companies around the world were faced with the challenge to put all kind of job profiles to remote working. So having back-end access to full back-end system, being able to work on service problems, on sales problems, being able to run transactions on legacy systems, everything which is not done by video conferencing. I kept saying at the time is there is no value for me being connected to my bank advisor by video because I know this guy. So that's not the key. The key is that this person can execute all the stuff that he would normally do. And that was true for all the job profiles. So what we saw across the world is that companies suddenly realized there is more to remote working. This is not a meeting problem. This is a working job profile, putting it somewhere else problem, and how do I prepare for that? And many companies found they weren't prepared thoroughly enough, only for a few people maybe, but suddenly they had to go to several hundred or thousand, and that created the extra demand of the first and the second quarter.
Got it. And you're truly trying to bring a converged experience rather than just, like you said, video conferencing, right? It's about the user pane of glass that might be the web or the enterprise app. It's the workflows. It's the different people that interact. It's the devices. It's even you do some mapping of the physical space also sometimes in some of your
products. Correct. So what we really try to do is we basically in the broadest sense, we look at any job profile at any process, and we believe that through digitalization, through the proliferation of devices and the likes, that there's really the possibility to do many more things remotely than we have seen in the past, especially in more traditional industries like manufacturing, logistics, and the likes. And so there's healthcare, for example. So there is potential everywhere, but it always requires the support of a human being. It requires the connection into a device, into a machine. Often it's a backend connection to the ERP is required. So if you think about the healthcare sector, you have healthcare equipment sitting in a hospital. If you want to access that equipment from the distance, it has to be seamless. You have to see the data. You have to be able to send a technician, support that technician. But that opens up a significant room for improvement, faster service, lower cost service, higher quality service. If you don't have to fly service technicians from, say, Europe to the US to actually install machinery or maintain machinery, if you can do that remotely by maybe having somebody on the ground, but not the super highly skilled expert, where it's actually very expensive to fly it over, or at the moment it's not even possible, but in future will always be expensive. These people are in high demand. And if you can be more flexible around that and do I would call it a mix and match of remote access, remote programming configuration, maybe with the help of somebody on the ground, but supporting that person with augmented reality, with glasses or with tablets, wearables, that can create a completely new experience, and does so more and more. And there is significant operational improvement that can be done, but also just resilience in cases where you just simply cannot fly or don't want to fly anybody.
Got it. And resilience was the key word for 2020, right? In some sense, everybody needed that, and more so than they ever believed, right?
Yes.
So now tell us how much of 2020 experience will be sticky into 2022. Let's say 2021 is a transition year. How much of these new behaviors, how much of these new systems are just going to become the new norm, right, going forward, and even help further accelerate, right?
Yeah, I think a lot is there to stay. I would say, and I think that's more and more the common notion in different industries, because I think the difference, what we saw now, is that the broad majority of companies had to really try and test what is possible. Whereas we always, if you look into our customer base, we always had the advanced players, kind of the digital leaders that took the solution like ours and other pieces of the value chain and put it together and digitalize business processes and make something out of it, and out of that create a competitive advantage. I think now, and many other companies, especially like in Europe, good old Europe, and also the US, other customers were at the sideline, or other companies, and say, well, okay, there is potential. I understand it conceptually, but it's a project. I have to embark on it. I have to invest money. I don't know what the payback will be. And therefore, I continue to do more of the same, especially in times where there is economic growth anyway. So the business activity was significant in Europe and the Americas over the last 2 years. So the really need to do something was not always there. Now with the pandemic, people had to tap into it, and then they saw what is possible. And I think in many C-level discussions and on the decision levels, the finding was, hey, wow, it actually works much better. It also works. Also, our people work much better with it than what we had expected. And the satisfaction, if we kind of forget the screen fatigue, if you are in home office on video conferencing all the time, but if you really think about the flexibility of your normal job profile, it is quite attractive and quite interesting. And I think therefore, now people have done some investments. They are in the middle of the journey, and there's no point in turning around and going back to the old world. And I think that will be an accelerator, and we see that It will be in 2021. People will continue to deploy and of course fine tune what they've done in the crisis mode, turn off some parts, activate other parts of the business, but really finding a new way of working. And in 2022, I think it will really be a very different world in many industries with much higher degree of digitalization.
Got it. And Oliver, here in India, we've got a booming SaaS ecosystem. Lots of companies building out for both India and the globe. And you're essentially a very scaled up European SaaS company, at least roots in Europe. Could you give us a sense of what it took to get there, and any tips and insights you have, both from your TeamViewer experience and your prior experiences, right, on what it takes to really be successful in this software as a service / subscription model, remote selling, right? What your experiences there are?
I think look, every company is different. And one thing is for sure that software as a service is generally a very interesting space to be, clearly in terms of the economic fundamentals, but also the deployment model, the way how you can kind of innovate, how you can really use, if you scale it globally, how you can collect input from different markets, understand what different markets are requiring at the moment. So it's very different if you look at Japan than you look at the US, for example, for us. And I think that's it's very helpful to be a cloud software provider and be able to innovate at that pace. You can basically roll out things every month or so if you want to, and so good place to be. In our history, I think what was very important is you have to find the product, as always, which solves a problem and creates opportunity. I think the one risk with software and IT in general is that everybody has a great idea of what you could do, potentially build in terms of hardware pieces, middleware, applications, and user applications. And then you have something and then you run around and tell people why you have to have it because it's so great. And I think starting on the other side and say, okay, what is really the problem we're trying to solve here? In our case, we don't want people to drive from A to B or fly from A to B, but let's all try to do that remotely. And I think starting there is an important one. The second piece I would say, which was crucial to us, is quality. Because it's so easy to deploy and because it's so easy to kind of throw out a software product, I think the temptation to do shortcuts on quality, security, protection, data protection it's tempting, and I think that bites you at some point. It will bite you, and therefore, I think for us, for our success, I think being kind of rooted in Germany, putting a very high level of quality aspiration, because it's mission critical, it's connecting sensitive parts of an enterprise. I think that was very important to get that right. And I think the third piece I would mention, scaling fast at high quality with the right product, scaling fast. Our piece to do it, frankly, was that at the beginning, and still today, but that was part of the beginning, is to make the product available for free, the highest quality product with full features available for free for personal use. That created some virality effect, and therefore the scale, the increase in scale in global users was very, very significant very early, and I think that's something which you need to somehow get right. If you can get some virality or recommendation engine and get to the scale quickly, that is an enormous helper.
Got it. And Oliver, as you think through the future, let's think a little, even a decade out. Where do you see these technologies going? I mean, you got obviously the immersive experience opportunity. You've got a deep collaboration opportunity to be able to stitch on a single pane of glass or single interface pane or whatever you want to call that 20 years or 10 years out, a single seamless experience, right?
Yes.
Can you just walk us through what you think of? You're probably got some prototypes heading in that direction, or where the world might head.
Yeah, I think the world. It's always hard to predict this because technology is developing so quickly. But I think what we have seen, what's now really picking up, and I think that will be the next thing, is augmented reality, virtual reality, and IoT coming together, really. So the connectivity of humans, the connectivity of things, really coming into play in an integrated way, and the whole concept of fully enabled digital twins, which are around, which can help you to work everywhere in the world. There is big mega trends that will be supporting this. The kind of the need to access the global workplace from everywhere in the world in order to distribute wealth. The need to reduce commuting, flying, and save carbon emissions. So there's the automation trend, the proliferation of devices. So there's so much going on, which is in favor of creating more and more fully capable digital twins, such that you can work almost everywhere on real world, real life problems, and then feed it back into the real life, and somebody is doing the last mile of the work. So this chopping of the value chain, distribution of work, I think that will be a massive trend going forward, because so much is possible now. And the boundaries that we've been, or the restrictions that we've seen over the last years, the lack of high bandwidth in some situations, the lack of 5G in this case, or fiber, the lack of processing power, battery lifetime, all these things are going away in very, very high speed now by different developments in different industries, and that's coming together quite nicely. And I think therefore the way how we work and the split of working on something physical versus working on a digital twin, that will change dramatically.
Great. So Oliver, I think we've come to the end of our time, but I just wanted to ask you one last question. Any guidance you have? We have a lot of young entrepreneurs in the audience today. We have a lot of aspiring, even students who want to get into the technology world, right? You've built an outstanding, stellar career over the last couple of decades. And, can you walk us through what guided you, what learnings you had there, and what tips you might have?
Yeah, interesting question. I think clearly you have to be quite technical, I think.
You got an engineering degree, right?
Yeah, engineering degree, and working in. I mean, when I started to work in telecoms, it was the beginning, at the beginning of mobile telephony. So basically 2G telephony. I was working on mobile coding. So I was fascinated by the rise and the speed of development in mobile communication, and then of course that continues now in what we do today in remote enablement, remote connectivity, and the like. So I think a deep interest in technology is extremely helpful to actually have fun doing some of this stuff versus doing it because it's a great business model and it potentially comes with a big price in terms of valuation. But just this genuine interest in technology helps a lot, I think. But then, yes, combining it with a very strong commercial sense and actually looking after the performance of the business pretty early on. Who is buying it? Why are they buying it? How much do they buy it? Why are they not buying it more, or can they buy it more? So this kind of, I would say, scrutiny on the commercial model early on, I think it's something which makes a big difference. There's many people who want to make great billings and great valuations, but don't have a great technology idea. And then there is equally lots of fantastic technology people, but they in year 5 they still only do small OEM deals and white label their product, and basically are totally running out of growth. So combining both is the trick, and you have to look at it at them at the same time always.
Thank you, Oliver Steil, the CEO, Chairman of TeamViewer. I wanted to thank you on behalf of the NASSCOM team for your support of the NASSCOM Product Conclave as well. We look forward to welcoming you here in Bangalore in India sometime soon.
Yes, let's hope we can do it.
Yeah, yes. And we can hopefully redo this session in person. So
yes, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.